Looks like everybody on the call knows who I am, so I was going to do a little introduction. I won't bore you with that. You guys all know who I am. Today, the title of this presentation we're doing is Thinking into Results Contractor Edition. And, a lot of you, our clients of mine, have been through it, so some of this might be redundant. If you've got any questions or you want to add anything as we're going along, we've got a couple people on here that, have not heard about it. This is being recorded too, so I can share it with those that weren't able to make it live today. I got a few messages ahead of time that people were interested. So um, I guess before we get started, I always like to set the intention, right? The intention for this call obviously is to add value. For those of you that are new to this, for those of you that heard it before, I want to make sure I leave you. I don't want to waste your time. I want to make sure you get some value from this. I want to give you some good information. And even if you've heard some of this information before, I'm hoping I can present it in a manner, in a way that you hear something a little bit differently, that it clicks. And for those of you that are my clients, we're getting ready to start the process of going through the lessons again. So asking you just to open your ears and listen maybe a little bit differently. So that's the intention for the call, is let's try and add some value to you. As we're thinking about this, I want you to think from your perspective as the owner of your business. And I also want you to try simultaneously to think about it from some of your employees. Because one thing, I've been working with this mindset stuff for about a year, and I still will explain in a minute how I got to it for those of you that don't know. But sometimes it's easier to identify the blocks in other people than it is in yourself. Self-reflection and self-growth is one of the hardest things to do. It's real easy to point out flaws and to see shortcomings in other people that we're interacting with, but sometimes it's really hard to look in the mirror and say, man, that's me. That's me. That's all my bad. And so for those of you that are new to this, as I got introduced to this material, Thinking into Results, and I'll just real quickly share, after 20 years of being in the home improvement, 10 years of which I was a member of a national training organization that teaches the best practices in the industry. I then went to work for that company for 5 years, teaching best practices. I found that even with the best practices, the best systems in place, sometimes we don't get the result we're looking for. Sometimes people can't get the result out of it. And so I really started diving into, well, what's going on? And I hate to say it, I love all the owners I've ever worked with, but sometimes I get on the call and I'm like, my gosh, you're blocking yourself, right? I could see it, but they couldn't see it. So I was searching, and that's where I came up along with this program, Thinking into Results. And the first thing I had to do when I signed up for Thinking into Results to be a consultant was I had to go through the program. I had to become a product of the product. And all I can say is I have no regrets in life, but I wish I would have had this material about 20 years ago, because it would have served me so well as a parent, as a husband, and definitely as a business owner, because I was able to identify blocks in myself that held me back. And so the questions I want to pose, and again, this is thinking about yourself or some of your key employees, key managers. Do you ever feel like you're wearing too many hats? Do you ever feel like you just have too much on your plate, more than you can get to? Do you ever feel like you're trying to do too many things at once? Not that you have lack of focus, but that you do feel scattered energy. Do you ever feel like there's not enough time in the day? Like if I only had 2 more hours? Do you ever feel like there's not enough money? Or do you ever feel like there's cash flow issues, even sometimes in abundance? Do you ever feel that scarcity mindset of, gosh, we just don't have enough money to do what we want to do in the company? What about this feeling of having to do everything yourself? If you want it done right, you've got to do it. You've got to get involved. Maybe you ever have trouble managing people from a little bit of a distance without trying to micromanage and control. And what about, have you ever had that feeling of not being able to count on people, especially key people that should be doing things a certain way and they're not? And you find yourself asking, why? So again, I'm just asking you to think about that from your employee's perspective and your perspective as an owner. Sometimes when we look at our employees too, maybe they suffer from some confidence issues. Do you ever see that, where it looks like they don't have the confidence, maybe the self-love? And that's one thing. If you're going to work with me, we get touchy-feely. We talk about self-love and confidence and getting out of our heads and head-to-head conversations and getting into our hearts and doing heart-to-heart conversations. And I guess if I could help you answer some of those questions, for yourself and your company, just think about if that would add some value. So how did I get to doing this mindset work? After my career, I talked about, I had this grandiose idea that I could work with less companies and have huge impact. A few of you were those companies I worked with, and 6 months to 9 months into my brand new consulting business, I was not seeing the results I wanted. I was running into, there's got to be something different. So I did some work with Grant Masmanian. As you guys know, Grant does the disc profile, the motivators. I got certified. I mean, Grant's been doing that for 30 years. I worked with him in my business for 10 years and became an expert in behavior and motivators. That was one step, but then I had to take it to the next step. And the next step was getting into thinking into results. And so let's look at that. Everybody on this call, you guys all have pretty good processes in place, right? Raise a hand. Do you have good processes? Some good processes, a good process. Okay, cool. We've got a few of you. Depending on the employee that's doing it, does that process always work the same? You always get a predictable result out of it?
No, they're not machines.
They're not machines, right? So they're not machines, and they also, we're gonna take a deep dive in this. They also all come from different backgrounds, different experiences. They bring different sets of beliefs, and what really opened my eyes to this, I started analyzing. Okay, when I worked for the national organization I worked for, I probably trained a couple hundred sales reps, and I trained them in a process that if you do it step by step by step, and if you have belief in the process, if you have belief in your company, if you have belief in your product and your price, and most importantly, actually, which is something we miss sometimes, if I have belief in myself, I'm going to get a good result out of that process. But that's not what I saw happen. I saw three things happen time and time again. Some people would come in and do really well with the process. They'd go back to their companies and they'd take off. Some people would stay about the same. They would kind of flatline. And then the third group was the most interesting to me, is I would give people this training, this new process that should make their sales explode, should make them, get better results, and they'd go backwards. Some of them would get fired. I mean, I remember literally getting on the phone with business owners and be like, I don't know what happened. He was such a good prospect. We hired him, we sent him to get training, and he came back and he blew up and he went backwards. So that's when I went to the dive of, okay, there's got to be something behind this. And I'm going to show you guys the stick figure that was, to me, life-changing. I know, those of you that have worked with me have seen this before. But before we get to that, I want to talk about another concept that goes kind of right along with this. It's called the knowing-doing gap, right? And the knowing-doing gap is, have you ever wanted to do something? Let's say, and a lot of us want to lose a little bit of weight. So let's say, have you ever wanted to lose a little bit of weight? And have you ever known what to do? I got to exercise a little bit. I got to eat better. Got to cut sugar and carbs. You know what to do, right? And then you're in the office and somebody brings in some donuts and sets them on the desk, and you walk by and all of a sudden you got a donut in your mouth. You literally have a donut in your mouth and you didn't even think about it. That's the knowing doing gap. We know what we're supposed to do, we just don't do it. So a lot of times it's not a knowledge, it's not that we need knowledge, it's that there's some kind of subconscious programming going on. I know a lot of companies on here, you guys have systems for salespeople that they're supposed to do, right? There's paperwork that they're supposed to fill out. They're supposed to turn in, take pictures of the job, upload them to the server. They're supposed to fill out. They know they're supposed to do it. They've been trained to do it. And when they don't, and you ask them, hey, Bill, why don't you turn in the sales paperwork? Why don't you take pictures? Usually you'll hear, I don't know. Don't you know you're supposed to do that? Yeah. Didn't you agree when we talked about the requirements for your position that you were going to do it? Yeah. Why aren't you doing it? I don't know. I mean, literally, it's the knowing doing gap. And so that's what we want to talk about today and kind of dive into is what's going on underneath. What is this program that's running that's keeping employees that have the knowledge, have the skill set, yet they're not showing up and they're not doing it the way they know how to do it. Anybody have anything pop up in the knowing doing gap, an example that pops into their mind? Scott, go
Definitely
ahead.
the sales guys and paperwork.
Yeah. Scott, did you have something? What about you?
Yeah, just one that I've been working on is knowing, what I need to do to be able to focus, but actually doing it, being able to focus on what I need to focus on.
Mm-hmm. And do you know how to do that? You do know how to do that, right?
Yeah. Techniques and tips and that kind of thing.
But then we just don't do it, right?
Right.
Sometimes. So that's really what we want to dig in. Is what's driving that? What's really driving that? And the term we use in this work that we do with the mindset, and again, what I'm talking about and teaching today isn't something that I want you to, take this and now this new information to go use. It's no, I want you to take this information and now we think differently. Now we look at a situation differently. Now we approach it differently. But the first thing in this is this concept of what we call paradigms. Anybody heard the term paradigm before? A bunch of you should be shaking your heads. Okay, so what is a paradigm?
It's a combination of habits.
Yes, combination of habits, thoughts, and beliefs. And where do they reside? They reside in the subconscious mind. So if we think about this, and I know for some of you this is a refresher, but I'm gonna go a little bit deeper here. So when we're born, let's think of a newborn baby for a second. Let's go deep on this mindset stuff. If we're thinking of a newborn baby, when they're born, do they have any programming in their little computer, in their little mind? Are they afraid of spiders or will they eat them? Are they afraid of stairwells or will they crawl right to them? When we come into this world, we're pretty perfect. We're pretty ready to grow and learn and live. But these paradigms that we're talking about, and some of them are those questions at the beginning I told you I could help you with, of scarcity. Sometimes we get told growing up that money doesn't grow on trees. There's not enough to go around and we need to be careful. And when we're told that, so this is what I want to talk about is how are paradigms programmed. They're programmed two ways. One is repetitive thought, being told over and over and over again. And the other is an emotional event. So in the case of being told something over and over again, if we grew up in a positive household, maybe we were told that we were loved every day. Maybe we were told that we were beautiful and we could do anything. And a lot of times these are the individuals that we see grow up and they're rock stars because they were told that over and over. Not all of us grew up in such a great home. Sometimes we're told we're not good enough. Sometimes we're told there's not enough money. So again, when we're looking at this, there's two ways they're programmed. One is a repetitive thought. And the reason I'm explaining this is if we want to change behavior in our employees, if we want to change behavior in ourselves, we got to understand how those paradigms got there. So if they weren't programmed by repetitive thought, the second way they were programmed is an emotional event. Sometimes as a young child, we lost a loved one. Maybe our parents got divorced. And I see this in a lot of business owners where we have to do everything ourselves. That can come from an early life event where maybe one parent leaves and now you've got to help your mom raise the other kids and everything's on you. And that creates a paradigm. We recently just celebrated the anniversary, or I don't want to call it anniversary, but the memorial of September 11th. It's interesting to me because if you think about it, before 9/11, we felt safe in America. We felt safe on our home turf. Other than Pearl Harbor, we had not been attacked on our ground. So we felt safe. After 9/11, we didn't feel safe anymore. Most Americans didn't feel safe for quite a while. We still have different securities in place in our airports that I don't even know if we need them, but they do it to make us feel safe because of this paradigm. So let's go back. So there's two ways that they're programmed: repetitive thought and emotional event. Once they're programmed, as we're working and living within these, let's think about something. Let's use the 9/11. Is it true that we're less safe after 9/11 than before? It's not true, right? And did that come from us or did that come from somebody else? Came from somebody else. Me growing up thinking I had big ears. One, is that true? A little bit, not really. Is it mine? No, it came from somebody else. So that's the second phase of paradigms. First, we want to figure out how they're programmed. Second, we want to figure out, are they true and are they ours? And 90% of the time, they're not true and they're not ours. So again, why would we want to live our lives limited by information running in our own minds that's not true and that's not ours? And same as you take this information and can maybe share it with your team and your employees, why would we want to let our employees live the same way? So again, paradigms are programmed by repetitive thought, emotional event. They're usually not true and they're usually not ours. Third thing, and then I'm going to get to the stigma figure, which was life-changing for me. The subconscious mind will believe anything we tell it. Anything we tell it. If we all close our eyes together right now and I try and take us to Maui and to Hawaii, I can get us on the beach. I can get you guys feeling the sun on your head. Some people are really good at this, could actually get you tasting a lime in your mouth and smelling salt in the air because your mind believes it. And just like your mind would believe that you weren't worth it or that money was hard to get or whatever it was told and it believed, it will believe the complete opposite of that. So if we're going to use this information, we're going to use this material to get different results in ourselves, in our companies, in our employees, even in our families. Those are the basic principles I really like to stress. All right. So let's see what that looks like and how that works. Anybody have any questions? All right. I'm going to skip through. I didn't want this to be a slide presentation, so I've got a few slides on here, but we're not going to use many of them. Everything I'm talking about today, just so you guys know, I am been mentored by Bob Proctor with the Proctor Gallagher Institute. Bob's 86 years old. He's been teaching this material for 50 years. He's got about 1,300 consultants worldwide. I'm one of his top 30 consultants that teaching this material. Made his inner circle. It's all about Think and Grow Rich. So I'm not going to go into detail today, but really read this book. If you haven't read the book, read this book. We already talked about the knowing doing gap. Same old thinking, same old results. I know the information. It's the way I'm approaching it, the way I'm thinking about it. We just talked about the mind and paradigms. Hopefully you guys have a better understanding. And again, when we're thinking about the paradigms, it's this upside down, inside out mentality. It starts with my thought, then it becomes a feeling, and then I take an action. And if I don't like what I'm seeing on the outside, I can't change the outside reality. I have to change the inside. And we're gonna look right here what it looks at. So this is the stickman figure. And I first discovered this a little over a year and a half ago. It was 2 a.m. I woke up in the middle of the night, couldn't sleep, ended up on my computer because Bob Proctor's worldwide, ended up on a webinar that he was doing, I think, for some people in Australia. And I watched him present the stickman figure. And the stickman figure was presented to him in the 60s by Dr. Thurman Fleet, a chiropractor. And the purpose of this is to give us a visual. So let me do this. I got ahead of myself. Everybody, just play with me for a second. I want you to close your eyes. Nobody's driving, right? Close your eyes. And I want you to visualize your brain, your mind. Sorry, not your brain, your mind. Visualize your mind. What does your mind look like? And where does it reside? Can you see it? All right. Anybody tell me what their mind looks like? When I first, because I did this, Bob ran me through this, and I said, well, I can see my brain, right? I see what a brain looks like. Well, that's not your mind. That's the processor, the brain, the intellectual currents that controls everything. But the mind, we're not going to get too spiritual or religious on this call, but the mind is a higher power. It's part of every cell in your body. And so if that's the case, we don't have a visual. And as human beings, we do really good with visuals. So that's the first thing I want to impress upon you is I'm giving you a tool here. If you want me to send you a picture of this is something you can use, but this is what a visual of what the mind looks like and how it processes. So let's look at this. We've got on top our 5 senses, and our mind uses those senses to process information. We smell things, we see things, we touch things, we taste and we hear. It's how we process information. From there, it goes through our conscious mind. From our conscious mind, it goes down to the subconscious mind. Subconscious mind, teaser, that's where the paradigms reside. From there, it goes to our body, and then it comes out in an action. Before we get to the next step in this, think about this for a second. The conscious mind, and there's varying studies, but it really controls only about 5% of your daily activity. And it's okay if you challenge this. I want you to really think about this. Jeff, this is new to you. Just think about, you're only in control of 5% of your day. 95% of it, your subconscious mind is telling you what to eat, when to breathe, what to think about, when to be scared, when to be happy, when to be sad. It's 95% of it's programming. If you think about the way you drive to the office, the way you eat, for me, the way I give myself a haircut every morning, I don't think about it. My subconscious mind runs that. I've got some descriptions on here. So on the left side is the conscious mind, which is 5% of our daily activity. It has limited processing capacity, short-term memory, the ability to manage 1 to 3 events at a time. Impulses travel at 120 to 140 miles an hour, and it can process about 2,000 bits of information per second. And you hear this, stay conscious, be conscious. Look at the comparison and the capability. The subconscious mind, long-term memory, past experiences, attitudes, values, and beliefs, paradigms. The ability to manage thousands of events at a time. Impulses that travel over at 100,000 miles per hour. And the ability to process on average of 4 billion bits of information per second. So that's where thinking and results is. We're going to take the power of our subconscious and use it for what we want instead of using it for what we're used to getting. And it's trying to change that. So what does that look like? So let's do this again. So ideas or information come to me either from like information I'm presenting to you guys right now. Maybe it's inspiration. Maybe it's something, we hear, taste, touch, smell, or see. Information goes through this process filter. 5 senses, conscious mind tries to control it, goes to the subconscious, goes to the body, comes out in an action. Once we take the action, then we get the result. Now I want you to think about, because we're programmed this way. I spent most of my life down here in the action and result. I took an action and saw what it did. Look at Quillman, we're talking about the golf. You hit a golf shot and it slices, it goes left, so you change and you do it differently, right? It's action result. In a business, we do some advertising, we generate leads. Oh, that worked. I'm going to do some more of that. Oh, it doesn't work. Now what am I going to do? And we spend a lot of time in the action and result. If you look at this process that I'm showing you here, that's the last step. And this is all controlled going through the filter of the subconscious mind. So what does that look like? So let's say I'm going to call it an X idea. Let's talk about income. Let's just say, and you guys are all owners, I'm going to talk sales reps because I've worked with a lot of sales reps on this. Let's say you've got a rep that his subconscious mind, his level of awareness, whatever you want to call it, is programmed at 70 grand. So that's kind of what he resonates in. So if I give him ideas that are in line with a $70,000 a year person, lifestyle, income, it's all going to resonate with him. And it's going to come out 70K result, whereas I've got in here an X result. So let's say he gets somebody like me that's a sales trainer on the phone with him. And I get him all excited. I give him a Y idea. And the Y idea is that he can make more money if he uses this process, if he gets this belief in himself, and he does these things. And so now I'm telling him, instead of 70 grand a year, let's get you programmed. Let's raise your awareness. Let's raise your insights to like 120 grand a year. How would that change your life? And I'm pretty good at this work, so I could get him excited and I could get his conscious mind wrapped around it. But the problem is, goes home and his subconscious mind takes over, goes to sleep, and subconscious mind goes wild. Wakes up, Sean's full of shit. I'm just going to keep doing things the way I've always done it. And so this process I'm describing here is what keeps 90% of the population stuck. For each one of you think about the company goals. If I'm a $2 million a year, a $5 million a year company, I've worked with so many companies that get stuck at a certain level. And we're down here stuck in the action result, trying to do things differently. We're busy. Oh my gosh, we're going to do it. This is the year. And then when it doesn't happen, we ask why. Well, I'm going to tell you, to be the owner, the leader of a $5 million company versus a $10 million company takes a different level of awareness. It takes removing some of your self-limiting beliefs. Some of the thoughts that are programmed into your mind that got you to the level you're at now become chains. You know, most business owners that get to the $1 to $3 million, they do everything themselves. They wear all the hats. They want to. They were programmed that way. But then when we get to a certain level, these are the same type of owners that nobody wants to work for because they're controlling and they're micromanaging. They say one thing and do another. So just think about it. I'm not picking on anybody. I just want this to be something you really think about. And for the larger companies, you know, as you get to a certain level, you're going to start having employees that grow with you and they get to these levels. So wouldn't it be cool if we could take all the processes we have in place, all the ideas, and reprogram and change what's going on in the subconscious mind so we freed ourselves? And again, the biggest block to all of this are the paradigms in the subconscious. You know, depending on if I'm working, I've done some women's group, I've worked with real estate agents, I've worked with a lot of contractors. Paradigms are kind of the same, but certain ones pop up. With contractors, I will typically say, I mean, the Superman, I've nicknamed it the Superman paradigm. That's the paradigm that you have to do everything yourself, that you can't count on. You know, for some of us, it comes down to trust. We don't trust other people. We either, you know, growing up couldn't trust somebody or had somebody take advantage of us once, and so we don't trust. Control. You know, as a young child, I had some things happen in my life where I was fatherless for a little while. My life was out of control. I was a control freak. Control freak. I've done some of this work we're talking about here, identifying, doing the reprogramming, repetitive thought. And now I'm a different person because of it. You know, power. We're afraid to pass off power to somebody else. Self-worth. You know, I've worked with people that actually make a lot more money than me. You know, 7-figure earners. Guess what they run into? Imposter syndrome. Who am I to be having this level of success? They actually get anxiety and stress out at that level. That's where I think this information is so powerful. You know, if you're somebody who's worried about running out of money with $100 grand in the bank, you're that same person that's still worried with $1 million in the bank. The underlying program, again, this is where I say it's inside matters more than the outside. It doesn't matter what's going on the outside. If you've got that fear inside, if you've got that lack, if you've got that program, it doesn't matter what you're seeing. You're never going to change it. So any questions on that part of it? So again, and we can talk more about this. And if anyone on the call wants to do a one-on-one to talk about it a little bit more, but there are strategies we put in place. The first thing is identifying them. You know, the whole thing I talked about, awareness. It's easier to identify this in other people sometimes, but we got to identify what in my personality, what in my paradigms is holding me back. And so I want to talk just for a minute here, if there are no questions, of how the easiest way I've found to identify the blocks. Stick a little quote in here from Buckminster Fuller, an architect. You never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. And honestly, what we're talking about here is building new humans, like building new versions of ourselves, getting the best version of ourselves. And with the material, you know, I'm not to my horn, but you guys that work with me, I've done a pretty good job of changing a lot of things in my life using this material. Health and wellness, I'm in the best shape of my life. You know, beautiful relationships, income, where I want it to be. So how do we identify what's holding us back? So and how many of you have been to one too many goal setting exercises? Because that's what I said when I got into this material. I'm like, I don't need another goal program. I know how to set goals. I'm all about goals. But then I got into it. And I remember I actually shared this with Brian Kalsowski with G4 Marketing. He was a client of mine in this program. And when he was watching the lesson one worthy goal, because it's something we work on, it's like, oh my gosh, I've never heard a goal presented like this. I got an email as he was watching it. And what this does, it's called creating order in your life to get a worthy goal that we're pinpointed on. But I'm going to explain how this will help us identify maybe some of the subconscious mind. This is for you. This is for as you're working with your employees. So there's 3 types of goals that we talk about in thinking into results. The first is an A-type goal, which really isn't a goal. An A-type goal is something you've already done. So it's kind of like setting yourself up to feel good that you can do it again. And I remember I was working with a company that was doing some business planning, and I was sharing some of this material, and their goal was $2 million for 2020, actually. And I said, cool, what did you guys do last year? $2 million. Cool, what did you do the year before? $2 million. How many years in a row have you done $2 million? Oh, about 10. Okay, so you've done $2 million for 10 years. You're going to do $2 million next year. Is there any growth in that? No, there's no growth at all. This is the other thing we talk about a lot in this work is if there's no growth, I'm either growing or I'm dying. Now, it'd be one thing if he was doing $2 million and wanted to increase his net profit, but that's a whole other discussion. But for this discussion, let's just say it's $2 million. So that's an A-type goal. That's not really a goal. B-type goals. This is where most of us spend most of our time in goal setting. B-type goals are something you think you can do. It's practical, it's realistic. And again, I'm going to challenge you that being practical and realistic might be a paradigm that was programmed into you, because do we need to be realistic and practical, or can we reach big? Can we go beyond what we think we can go? So a B-type goal is, say this $2 million company. They might reach for 2.2 or even 2.5 is a huge stretch for that company. But when they're looking at their planning, when they're looking at what they can do, if they put this extra marketing in place, if they increase their conversion rate, their closing rate, if they increase you can see the path to it, right? If we go back to the stickman figure though, remember the diagram, thought, conscious, subconscious, body, action. That's all down in the action. And that's the thing about goal setting is we think of the goal and then we figure out how we're going to do it before we've even decided or got 100% belief that we want the goal. So let's talk about the kind of goals we want to be setting and the reason behind it. And this is different than big, hairy, audacious goals. It's kind of the same concept, but it's a little different. So a C-type goal is you don't know how you're going to do this, but it's what you really want to do. And whenever I work with, say I'm working with a sales rep and I talk about this and I get him excited to make more money working for the company than he ever has. And I say, okay, we're going to take you from 70 grand to 150 this year. Or a company that we're going to say, let's go from 2 to 4 million. And again, this isn't 10 times. We're not talking 10 times. I'm not Grant Cardone. This isn't 10 times. We're talking just a stretch beyond what you think you can do, but it's something you really want. And again, it's got to be something that excites you and lights you up. But then when you get to it, and this is, if you do a one-on-one with me, we go through this process, tell me why you can't. And right then is when you should start listening, and it's when I start taking notes. Because all the reasons that come up of why you can't do it, at the end of it, if we look at each one of them one by one and say, is that true and is that yours? Is that true and is that yours? 90% of the time, 95% of the time, it's not true. And again, so we're using some different principles in this. It doesn't matter how you get it, it just matters that you really want it. If you think about, go back in your life right now and think of anything you've ever really, 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 really wanted. And you didn't give up on it and you kept the desire alive. You held the picture in your mind. Did you get it? I think for most of us, the answer is yes. The only reason we don't end up getting things is we decide we want something else, or we don't want it bad enough to put in the effort. So with the C-type goal, more important than reaching the income level or the company size is the growth that's going to happen inside of you, the growth that's going to happen inside of your employees, the growth that's going to happen inside of your company. Jim Rohn has a quote, it's not, becoming a millionaire isn't about the money you'll receive, it's about the person you become along the way. And so for me, it's helping business owners like you help their employees identify what's holding them back, get a worthy goal in place that's going to light you up. It's going to light your whole team. I mean, think about that. If we get a worthy goal for the company, as an owner, there's something in it for me. What's in it for the employees? Let's get something that lights them up. I was working with a sales manager a few weeks ago, and we were talking about, and everything he was talking about to me is the guy's numbers aren't right. The ratios, blah, 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 blah. it's all about him. It was all about him. I'm like, well, what's in it for them? Like, what do they want? What do you mean? I said, what, if you want to motivate them, figure out what they want and help them get it. For a lot of us, that's not the way we were taught to think. So again, thinking into results. It's about identifying what in our subconscious mind is holding us back. It's realizing the power of it. And then coming up with ultimately some affirmations and statements, some different thinking to get us some different results. And I'll tell you one thing, I've been working with this specific material for a little over a year now. That subconscious mind is so powerful. Even when we identify it, even when we start working, it still creeps up. Some of my clients on here, they've been working with, you guys can testify to that. You think you got it knocked and it flares up on you. Cool thing is we give you some tools to power through that. Let's see, I don't know if I want to, do we have time to go into that? Maybe not. So, share for a minute. All right. I've been talking plenty, I think. Anybody have any questions? Want me to keep talking for a minute? Two more. Brian, you want to hear me ramble for a little bit more? You got any questions?
My eyes are rolling back in my head.
Yeah.
I'm trying to take notes. It's just a lot of notes. Like, it's a lot of information. So
yeah,
trying to process.
I recorded this, so if you want a copy of it to listen to, I'll send it out. I'm gonna send it out to anybody who wasn't here.
Good.
It is a lot of information, and honestly, for me, that's why I was so excited when I found it. I feel like I was searching my whole life for some of this information. You know, I read Think and Grow Rich back in 2003 for the first time, and when I read it, I was like, I found the secret. Like Napoleon Hill talks about, the secret is buried in that book. You know, and it's really holding something in your mind. And if I go back now and pull out the chapters on auto suggestion and the subconscious mind and desire and persistence, it's all there. But the problem is, got my little Bible here, Think and Grow Rich. It's thick. It's a lot. I mean, I literally 3 years ago took this book and I have notes in my phone on every chapter, and I highlighted the steps because I'm like, I want to take these steps. I want to do this. Like, I know how powerful this is. I want to do it. And Bob Proctor took all this and put it into 12 lessons that for me, like, streamlines the process.
Yeah, I think that's the part of the challenge is, one is beginning to learn what a limiting belief is for you and how to uncover what those things are. That's the hard part, because unless you have someone who really can talk you through that and ask you good questions and help to unearth some of what's really deep down in there, it holds you back. And then the second piece is, like you said, it's a bit overwhelming unless you have somebody who gives you the cliff notes, right? So I've read that book 3 times, and I've put some of those things into practice, but even I think some of our limiting beliefs make it difficult to read the book and be able to put, implementation to those things. The challenging part isn't just doing it for yourself, then it's also, how can I then share that with my team, or how can I be sure that someone else is going to be able to also accomplish this? And so, it's a lot to eat all at once. It's hard to take all that in and realize, you got to take some baby steps first.
Yeah. No, but and again, so many things I want to say on that. One is, somebody you can talk to, so remember that.
I think he owes me a favor or two.
This isn't a sales pitch. I'm trying to add value here, but a guy that might be able to help you. So just think about this, though, because I think this is so important. Inside out. So let's think of other human beings we see out in the world, like somebody that's homeless that's on the corner. Right. When I first went through this program, I literally, and you guys know I'm an emotional person, I literally would almost start bawling every time I saw a homeless person, because I'm like, understanding what I know, they got told so much shit about themselves at a very young age, probably, where they got on drugs and alcohol and couldn't get off it, that their inside reality, the best idea they can come up with is to stand on a street corner. That's what they think they're worth. That's where their self-love is. That's where, so, you know, when I see a 60-year-old working at a fast food restaurant for $10 an hour because they have to, that's the best. So then now let's take that inside our companies, you know, and use this to inspire our employees. So if I've got a guy that's a laborer for me and he's making 12, 15 bucks an hour, and, you know, not to pick on roofers, but I work with a lot of roofers. I mean, he's a roofer and he doesn't think he can be anything more than that because of everything that's going inside of him. So then I have him doing tasks and he's not doing them very good. And I'm telling him he's not doing them very good. And I'm coming down on him. And all I'm doing is reinforcing everything he's always been told. I'm not telling him anything different. And so what does he do? He continues to do that. So with this material and my understanding of it and this new awareness of it, something I would hope to just share with you that you can take this nugget with you too is believe in people. You know, I had a gal go through my program. She's a pretty high up at Walmart. She makes a couple $100,000 a year. And when I was sharing this part of it with me, she said, Sean, when I started at Walmart as a young 20-something, didn't know anything, I had one of my supervisors take me in and say, Cass, I see something in you. I see something special in you. I think you're going to be really good. And she'd never had anybody believe in her. And she took off. And so when I have this employee coming to me and they're not doing what I want them to, and I didn't get into the energy stuff. I get deep into vibration and the laws of the universe, but we'll save that for another day. But negative vibration gets negative results. So when they come to me and they're not doing good, I want to shift that. And I say, you know what, man? Do you remember back when we hired you? Do you want to know why I hired you? I saw something special in you, man. Like, I don't know what it was. I just thought this guy's going to be one of my top guys. I thought I could see you being a foreman. But right now, you're showing up late, blah, 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 go through the things that they're doing wrong. What's going on? What do we got to do to change that? Because that's not the version of you I see. And it's shifting that, and it's having belief. You know, and some people, I've shared this and I got people rolling their eyes going, oh, that sounds really good, Sean. You're like a voodoo magic guy. We can just think our way into people performing better by shifting their energy. There's studies done. There was one, and there actually a lawsuit came out of it because there were some ethics issues, but it was a class of like 25 students, and they gave the teacher fake test results. All the kids were about the same. They weren't very smart kids. They weren't very good students. But 5 of the kids were presented to the teacher as high IQ ACE students. At the end of the semester, those 5 students were top of the class. They were the same as all the other kids in the class. But because the teacher thought they were better, because the teacher thought they were smarter, because the teacher treated them differently, they rose. And so as business owners, when you think about it, it's hard to get good people. It's always been hard to get good people. So I like using thinking into results and some of this mindset stuff to say, okay, I got some mediocre people right now. You know, the old A, B, C employees, I got some Bs. Cs I still might want to get rid of, but I got some Bs. I want to make them As. This new understanding of the subconscious mind and what's going on inside, outside, I can impact them and help build them up. You know, I can talk to them about affirmations and the power of their mind. Even do a little session where we're talking about, but right now I can share some information with you. So hope that was helpful. I literally talk about that part of this at least once a day right now, whether it's with a sales manager or a production manager or a business owner. You know, it's how do we shift? You know, Wayne Dyer is one of my favorite, gurus, spiritual guys. And he always talked about when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And as I've learned to dive deep into subconscious work, it's so true. You know, whether it's in a relationship and somebody's, showing up in your life and you don't like the way they're showing up, you start changing the way you think about them. You start to change the way you see them. All of a sudden, they become different in your eyes. They change, the behavior change. With employees, we see this happen. And even with yourself, maybe we'll do a follow-up call. We can dive a little deeper on some of this stuff. But, I had you guys picture your mind, but like Brian, like who is Brian Miller, right? Like who is Sean Foyer? I got told who I was for a lot of years by a lot of people. And I woke up one day and I said, I don't know if that's all true. I don't know if that's who I want to be. You know, we get programmed in our self-image, and it's like, we can change that. And we get to decide every morning what that means. So I'm throwing up way too much info. All right. Questions, comments? Those of you that this is new to, if you want more information, just reach out to me. I messaged most of you on LinkedIn. I think most of you have my contact info. If you don't, my cell, I think I have a thank you slide. I might. There's my contact info. Cell phone, email, get a hold of me. If you know anybody that would be interested, you know, I've got my Thinking into Results Contractor group. We do the 12 lessons over 13 weeks. We're actually kicking off around tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern every Tuesday. We get on a group call like this. We share wins. We go through the information. We work on reprogramming. I've got a women's group that I'm doing. If you know any women in your life that could use this information, that starts on September 21st. Powerful program.